Everyone needs the seas to be wetter. We don't need all our cheese to be cheddar. Our only needs to get better and better and better and better.
All right, so when we're talking about aligned DPI, we're talking about the organization as a whole. What is that organization doing when it comes to direct, plan, improve? Then we're looking department by department, right? What are they doing in terms of direct, plan, improve? Then we're looking team by team within those departments. And then we're looking individual by individual. Okay, so let's say we start looking at the organization as a whole. This organization has a purpose. Why does this organization exist? And then there's this beautiful future destination that we call the vision. So this will be the vision. Visions are always future focused. So this is a future destination. Okay, and so here we are as an organization. Let's draw it as like a little building. It has a purpose, it has a vision, but that's way, way out there in the future. So how do we get there? Right? That's the big question. Direct plan improve is going to help us get there, but let's just talk about more of the foundational stuff, right? A lot of times the purpose of the organization ties to the organization's core values, right? So it's connected. What are my core values? Excellence, contribution. And some of them could be the real values that we all show up with already, and some of them could be aspirational values, right? And then we could also take that purpose and turn it into a catchy, short and sweet, in the now statement of purpose. So our mission statement is always connected to purpose, and it's an in the now statement of purpose. Okay, so what that means then is we know why we exist. We could articulate it, and we know it's rooted in our values, and it's going to help get us to achieve the vision. Okay, so maybe the vision came first, and then you had to think about purpose for your organization. Maybe the purpose came first, and then you thought about the vision. So how do we get there? Right, so we could look at, and if this is an island, you could think of all the big goals that are going to help us get there from now as an organization, organizational goals. We have to hit this goal, we have to hit this goal, we have to hit this goal, and that's probably long term, right? If the vision is in with the next decade, the next 5 years, whatever it is. And so the goals are big, they're measurable and all that fun stuff, but then we could chunk it down into what we call objectives, right? So our organization is going to have objectives. And that's a nice sized chunk for us to focus on, right? What are our objectives? So when we say direct for the organization, it's directing us across this whole span from near term to midterm to long term, right? And so those objectives are going to help us check how we're doing and pacing towards where we want to go as an organization. Okay, so under the D or direct, it's setting that vision, charting that course, getting those objectives very clear. And we also want to have our success criteria. That's built in to a lot of the goal formation and the objective creation, but we want to make sure we understand what success looks like. And that's a question that just always pops in my mind all the time is, what does success look like? Okay, so there's that. The big picture of direct, right? When we talk about planning, well, what are we planning for, right? Is this a product? Is this a service? Is this ongoing ops? Is this going to be a program? Is this going to be an initiative? Because that's all different. But if we're high level still talking about the organization, then we're not really in the weeds of specifically planning. Did I say project? Okay, let's say there's a particular project, right? It's not the project planning, it's more about planning for which projects we need, right? So this planning is really about the portfolio. Because then later, again, remember we're doing connected, direct, plan, improve, and now we're just talking about the organization. Then later we could look at portfolio management as a practice. We could look at project management as a practice. We could look at product management as a practice. And it's going to be aligned with what the organization is trying to achieve. Okay, so at this point, we could say, I hate crossing things out, but let's just say we're crossing it out right now because we need to look higher up, right? From a larger context. The portfolio is going to tell me all those things. Okay, so for the planning level, we also want to think about not only what goes into the portfolio, what are the obstacles, what are potential blockers, impediments? And this all really ties into risk, right? What are the game changers that just knock us out and just there we are, stopped in our tracks, we can't go forward, right? Like if there's a regulatory change or something like that, right? So we want to keep in mind all the risks and plan for the risks. And so that is at the high level here. And when we look at what's going on in the portfolio, what happens is at the highest level of governance, really, organizational governance is the means by which your organization is directed and controlled. We're going to have a governing body. And let's say this is our governing body. Let's say this is the board of directors. That's all of them with their thumbs up. Yay, I'm a board of director member. Okay. So here we have our board of directors. Now, when we talk organizational governance, the board of directors, big piece there. Other times you'll see also an audit committee. And if you are a publicly traded company, you'll see shareholders, right? But we'll focus on the board of directors. The board of directors are going to come up with the strategy. And what is the strategy? It's the broad approach to achieve these objectives and ultimately goals, which will lead us to actually making that future destination, that future focused vision, a true reality, right? So strategy is a broad approach to achieve objectives. And so even though this is a broad approach, they're coming up with all kinds of, let's pick a different color. They're coming up with all kinds of strategic documents, strategy docs. And even though it's like the broad big picture approach, these strategy docs could be quite lengthy, right? So they're my strategy docs, and there's the awesome board of directors who are setting the awesome strategy. which is of course an aligned strategy. And they're going to pass those docs over to the portfolio management practice. And based on what these docs say, the portfolio management practice is going to say, well, here's a business case for you. Here's a business case. There's a business case. Now, just because they came up with the business case, and maybe there are other business documents that come into play here, like needs analysis and other things, you know, one business case might get 2 big fat thumbs up. One other business case might get 2 big fat thumbs down. Now, the business case could be potentially for a project. It could be for a product. It could be for a program. It could be for an initiative. It could be for a new service. It could be for updating one of your existing products, services, etc., etc., etc. Let me show you something fun. This would be a business case for a project saying, pick me, choose me, love me. Not every project that is proposed is going to make it into your portfolio. So I've been throwing around these words, and it's good maybe now to let you know that a portfolio is a collection of assets into which the organization chooses to invest its resources in. Projects, so here's a project, would be chosen when the organization believes it will receive the best return on investment, and perhaps based on a triple bottom line of economic growth, social progress, and environmental stewardship, otherwise known as the 3 Ps: people, planet, and profit. Okay, so which business cases are going to get approved versus which business cases aren't? And it's all going to be connected, right? The organization's purpose, why it exists, its values, what they believe to their core, what we as shared values, everyone in this organization stands for, the organization's mission, that's the in the now statement of purpose, the organization's vision, that aspirational future state. We didn't talk about guiding principles yet, but those are going to come in handy so we could all stay aligned, so we could all be guided by the same recommendations. Okay, so don't worry about that for now. So now you have the organization wants to deliver to the 3 Ps, let's say, and keep everything buttoned up in line with the vision. Okay, so we talked about that. We also talked about how strategy is the broad approach to achieve goals and objectives. So at this level of the organization, we're talking strategic objectives for the whole company, right? Now, don't worry about focusing on everything this particular graphic is showing. Remember, we're talking about the strategy, the broad approach. Now, the strategy cycles could vary based on your industry. Sometimes there's very, very quick strategy cycles. Sometimes the strategy cycles are, over the course of years. So your board of directors is going to be creating those strategic docs accordingly. They're going to pass those documents to the portfolio management practice. Pick me, choose me, love me, right? The portfolio management practice is going to come up with those business cases for a new product, project, service, or an updated product, service, whatever it is, right? And not all business cases will be approved. And for whichever one is undertaken, now we have to be smart. Like, is this a product? Is this a service? Is this an operational change? Because we need to manage a program differently from how we manage a project. We need to manage a product differently from how we need to manage a project, right? So ultimately, though, you always see this cute little box like a deliverable, right? The output, whatever it is that we're creating. And those deliverables are going to be transitioned, I like to say ops and or out, right? Is this something for internal use? Is this something that is for an external customer, or maybe both, right? Okay, so then we're really connecting the dots between strategy, tactics, and ops. Okay, strategy was that broad approach to achieve the objectives and achieve the goals. tactics enact the strategy. So tactics let us bring that strategy to life. It's like, hey, I'll help you bring that strategy to life. Pick me, choose me, love me. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. That's kind of where we've gotten. Here would be that big picture, right? With the pick me, choose me, love me being a business case that will either get the green light or not. Right, so we took the cartoon out and we see our business cases, some of which are going to get nope. Some of which are going to get the green light, right? And then depending on what it was a case for, maybe a project charter will be created. Maybe it'll get passed to a product owner, things like that. Okay, so that's part of the planning. And then you leave it to the right team to execute and deliver, right? So we just saw the tactical level. So anytime we talk DPI, we're being strategic. This is the broad approach to achieve those goals and objectives. So DPI at the organizational level is great. And then wherever it makes sense to, we'll just squeeze it in here, execute and deliver. We always draw it as this little box to execute and deliver. Wherever it makes sense to execute and deliver, we're going to deliver that output, that deliverable. And all throughout, there'll be some form of reporting, kind of cascading back upwards. And also, if there are any issues, like we really need to understand how to escalate, when to raise our hands, who to escalate to, right? So there's certain cascades that we see where a certain scope of control is going to be delegated to, let's say, the PMO, the project management office, and ultimately to maybe a project steering committee, a governance board for the project, right? Here's the governance board for the whole organization, but a certain scope of control will get delegated down to project governance. And now I'm just going to put my project manager here. It doesn't look like a happy one, but we could turn that frown upside down. Project manager. Here's our project manager, who's also going to delegate a scope of control down to their project team. And they're happy. And again, they need to know what's their scope of control. And then when do they need to raise their hand and escalate? So just like the scope of control, decision-making, action-taking, trade-off making, authority being delegated, and maybe even from the team, it's delegated to one individual, another individual, right? That's a cascade down. We're also going to see, well, when do we need to raise our hands and escalate and tell our project manager? And the project manager, like, well, when do I need to raise my hand and let the project steering committee know something? And the project steering committee is like, oh, when do we need to actually loop in the higher board of directors or the C-suite or whoever, started this whole chain of events to happen to say, hey, we need a project, right? And so let's say that was a business case for a specific project. And then that would mean one day that project manager walked into work, now that project manager has a project charter officially authorizing the project to go ahead and apply resources, get a team together, and do the work, right? So we execute and deliver. And then we see I, improve, right? So we're still talking direct, plan, improve, and we kind of got in the weeds. We got into the tactical weeds of it, just to better illustrate the point, but we're talking DPI still at this organizational level. And so what does improve mean? Exactly what it sounds like, at all levels, right? So there is a continual improvement model that we're going to apply at all levels. And I'll pick a color that, black, let's do black. For I, there's the continual improvement model. And you could guess that this model is used at the organizational level. And let's say we're within the portfolio management practice, where therein lives the project management practice, or at least it's connected to it, right? All aligned. And so we're also going to be improving as we execute and deliver, right? And then even after this deliverable is created, so this is your product, your service, whatever it is you made, is that, or is there going to be improvements after this project is over? And if there are, whose hands is it in, so that they know to say, hey, we need to improve, right? And then there might be a business case to do the, let's say that was V1 of your awesome deliverable. And it's like, well, now we need to make a case to do V2, right? And in some organizations, it's very fast and it's less formal and you're just iterating, right? There's a saying, don't hate, iterate. And the customers are looking at it, say, we want this, we want that. And then it's no longer a project, right? That's why the distinctions are important, because projects always have a beginning and then they always have an end, and you're done. And your team goes, disbands and goes on another project, right? If we're managing a product, it might make more sense, and it's going to need a lot of changes all the time. Do you want to have project after project after project? You can. Or you might just want a team that's dedicated to that product and its updates, right? So that's why we need to be smart, even from the start as we're connecting these dots. So we followed that all the way through, even though we were just talking about DPI at the highest level from the organization's view. And we could see how that connects down to the tactical, ops and out, and then you have your end user or stakeholder or customer, whoever's doing the looking, to say like, oh, this has worth, benefit, usefulness, and importance, right? So the organization has a why, and it's going to be value centric, right? We saw delivering to a triple bottom line, like what does that value actually look like? Who gets to tell me the value of something? Well, it's who's ever doing the looking, right? So we could look at value, business value. We could look at value in terms of economic growth, social progress, environmental stewardship. That's from the organizational level, right? But creating value for this user is helping that profit, right? Helping that economic growth. And maybe helping some of the other stuff along the way too. DPI, from the organizational perspective, direct, plan, improve, really sees this big picture of connecting the dots from strategy to tactics to ops, again, perhaps looking at that value from the perspective of the 3 Ps.